We are back with you for overtime here at Old Favorite Friday, and we are continuing the conversation about Dogfish Head 120. And this beer is, this just takes me back. Having a glass of this beer and picking up the bottles that I picked up earlier today, I remember when this beer first came to South Florida. I can't remember the exact year, but the beer was first out in 2003. It was probably around 2006, 2007 when it first came on my radar, maybe a little bit later. And you couldn't find it. There was a few bottles that went to the most boutique craft beer locations, maybe a keg or two that went to like a really posh craft beer bar. And when we had it, we felt like we were doing something, like we were in the know, or we had stolen something. It was amazing to get our hands on this. What was your first experience with this beer?
So my first experience, in a way, you just summed it up, because it took me forever, number one, to even find it. And I know when I finally did, the price tag, and it was worth it, but the price tag was like crazy on the beer, because it was one of those, like, you can only get like a couple bottles. I think they even had like a limit on how many you could get.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just I want to say a mom and pop liquor store, because that was back when you could actually go to those small liquor stores instead of the breweries just having a line. You'd be like in a line outside the liquor store. And so, yeah, I got a couple bottles, and I didn't know what to expect, because at that point I wasn't as into craft beer, or wasn't brewing or anything at that point. And you're here like, oh, they hopped at 120 minutes and all this, and it's a huge beer. And I think even though I don't know the ABV on this, I remember it was like some ridiculous thing.
It's like high teens, low 20.
Yeah.
There's a range they give for what the releases are, for sure.
And so, yeah, I remember having this, and it just like, you took a couple sips and you knew it was a big beer, but it was just such a special experience, because it really kind of, in that way, it was such... I don't know whether you call it an IPA or American barley wine, but it really, you take a sip and you're drinking something.
I've always wondered that, because this is, being this high in ABV and this kind of malt bill, it's a perfect description of is it an IPA, is it a barley wine. This beer is so unique. You don't have this in the craft beer culture right now. You've got the big flavored imperial stouts, you've got barley wines, but something like this, I don't see any correlate to the beers that I'm tasting today in a similar category. I mentioned in the brief video that we put up on Facebook and Instagram that this is one of the godfathers of the whales, right? And you have to describe what that means, because if you do not speak beer nerd, you might go, well, what the hell are you talking about? Yep. And we're talking, of course, about beers that are really hard to find, really rare, highly rated. People cut off their right arm just to get a drop. And this beer was that before you had that term.
Yeah, and it's a good point you make, because they even obviously have like the Save the Whales Beer Festival nowadays, and without a beer like this, that wouldn't exist. Without those kind of bigger beers, like even Old Ruffian or some of the other American barley wines, that at the time was a once a year, you had to just be at the right spot to get it. Without all these kind of like forefathers or predecessors, there'd be any event, whale event.
Well, it's definitely the foundation of going over the top with something that no one would have expected. When I first got into beer, and if you handed me a 17, 18, 19% beer that tasted like that, I would go, this doesn't taste like beer, it tastes like brandy, right? And I have learned to appreciate those beers, back in the day, and really appreciate what I'm drinking now, because I think it's a really high quality beer. It continues to have a place in the industry that's very, very unique to itself. I have to mention, because you mentioned the price point when you first bought this beer. Ralph, do you know how much money this 4-pack cost me this afternoon?
I have no idea. I would imagine. It was double digits. I would say, well, I'll lowball it. I'll say like 32 4-pack.
$42.
Oh wow!
To the point that as I was checking out, the cashier was horrified that she had made a mistake, and I had to reassure her for 4 minutes that no, I did buy this. And it wasn't a mistake, and I was not. I was in sound mind and sound body to buy a $42 4-pack of beer. Listen, I love the fact that they're doing this beer. They're continuing to do it, and getting the price that they need for it, and the beer is a little more widely available. If you haven't picked this beer up in a while, and you're really big into the craft beer industry, and you're one of the people that seeks these whales out, I think you got to go back to a beer like this every now and then and try it out. And remember, not only that this is where this whole thing came from, or one of the founding fathers of that, but this beer still stands up. There are beers like that used to be the it beer that everyone waited in line for, that have kind of become passé, that are still as good as they ever were. They didn't stop making good beer.
Yeah.
People just moved on to what else they were interested in, because those became more available.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Dogfish had 120. I cannot drink the rest of this, or I will not be able to finish out my work day. But we really hope you have a good old favorite Friday. We hope you go and pick out your own beers. Let us know what you guys are drinking on our social media accounts. This was a beer that's been recommended like 20 times over the last several months. I finally, it was in stock. I was able to pick one up, so I was able to fulfill it and put it up there this week. But everybody, cheers.
Cheers.